And one last thing I want to touch on, guys, before we go, and that is the CDC's comments, or not their comments, but the release of this report today. All right. So today, the CDC, the Center for Disease Control here in the United States, reported the top 10 causes of death here in the United States. And you can see it right now on your screen. Obviously, not a very good thing. And a couple of things have gone up. Suicide's gone up and made the top 10. And then unintentional injuries was number 4 in 2015. And now, after chronicling and finalizing everything in 2016, it's unintentional injuries. So they're attributing much of the unintentional injury raise to an opioid epidemic. So here in this country, we're having an opioid epidemic. Apparently, hundreds of thousands of people are affected with opioid addiction. And look, it's a serious thing. I personally do not and have not known anyone who has an opioid addiction. I do know some people who have committed suicide. And yes, both of those things are sad, and there should definitely be outreach programs and things we can do about that. But again, look at the top 10 things here. Heart disease, still number 1 by a pretty significant margin. Cancer's number 2. Chronic lower respiratory disease is number 4. Stroke number 5. Alzheimer's 6. Diabetes. How many people do you know have diabetes? I know a ton of people who have type 2 diabetes. Type 2 diabetes you give yourself. Type 1 you don't give yourself. But type 2 diabetes is most prevalent, and that's up there in the top 10 causes of death in this country because it's a gateway disease. Then there's influenza and pneumonia, kidney disease. So 8 of the 10 are nothing new. These have been among the top 10 causes of death in this country over the last 60 years. Why? Because we changed our nutritional guidelines back in the late 50s, early 60s of the 20th century, and it was to appease people in the sugar, corn, wheat industries, and unfortunately it's nothing but be a detriment to our health. And also, unfortunately, in our culture, we've been taught just blindly trust your doctor. He or she will give you a pill or recommend you get this procedure done, and just sit back, relax. Maybe you make a few dietary changes. But look, I'm going to start doing work too in the very near future with a guy who's on dialysis. He needs a kidney transplant. And he showed me a little pictograph of what he should be eating. Like what the hospital and these kidney specialty centers are recommending that he eats. And guess what? Half of it was processed, sugary garbage that is not going to help his health in any way, shape, or form. It may not hinder his kidneys directly, but because of how it's going to hinder the rest of his body and his health, it's not going to be very good. So this is an issue we've been dealing with for 60 plus years. And yes, modern medicine has enabled people to live longer, but as I've gotten to know more and more people who are older, whether they're relatives, whether they're current or former clients, they're not living. They're just they're just sitting back, they're immobile, they're not functional, they can't even think clearly because they're taking this concoction of medications, most of which have never been experimented on thoroughly enough just in and of themselves and what they're supposed to do. Many drugs, which were originally supposed to be for symptom A, are now being used for symptoms B, C, and D of other ailments, and it's just a mess. We have no idea what we're doing. We're too reliant on doctors and the medical system, and we need to take hold of it. I did an interview over the summer on my podcast with the guy who wrote the Wheat Belly books, and he just came out with another one called Undoctored, Dr. William Davis. And he wrote a book, Undoctored, even though he himself is a doctor, and he's used to be a cardiovascular doctor. And why? Because this system has fucked so many people over the last 60 years. Look at these statistics. Look at these top 10 statistics. 8 of the 10 have absolutely everything to do with our diets, our lack of exercise, and the lack of information and education that we have on this subject. Even doctors, I have friends who are doctors. I know doctors. They don't get, unless they're dietitians specifically, they don't get more than 2 weeks of training on nutrition throughout their 8 years of schooling and their residencies and everything else. They're just taught to prescribe a pill that will help alleviate the symptoms of whatever their patients are coming in and complaining about. we ourselves as people, whether you live in the United States or you live elsewhere, I'm sure this doesn't differentiate too much where you live if you're not from the United States. This needs to change. This needs to change. And it starts with you. And you may think you're too old or you may think you're too far gone. That's bullshit. You can change 110%. How do you do it? The 3 pillars, guys. You eat well. All right? We've gone over that. If you don't know what that is, download the 5 strategies report in the description. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening on my podcast, I'll put that in the description below. Start there. Those are 5 things you can do today without buying anything, without doing anything that will change your life and start putting you in the right direction. Exercise regularly. It doesn't have to be a bodybuilding workout at a gym. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. There's so many home-based workouts. There are things you can get for free on YouTube. You may just enjoy walking or hiking or swimming. Do something active. Okay, like you can do that. And also prioritize sleep. Because of all the devices we have and the abundance of technology in our society the world over, we're addicted to our screens. The blue light on our phones, on our televisions, on our computers, on our tablets, they keep us awake at night. Study after study after study proves that. That's why you can start binging on a Netflix thing even when you're a little tired at 8 or 9 o'clock at night. Next thing you know, you've seen the whole fucking thing. It's 3 or 4 in the morning. You got to be up in an hour or two. It's not conducive to health. If you prioritize your nutrition, your exercise, and your sleep, and you make those common, regular things in your life, I can assure you that if you're looking to prevent a chronic disease, barring terrible environmental pollution and some really, really shitty luck genetically, you're going to be fine. And if you have a chronic condition as we speak, guess what? You can turn the tide. You can stem the tide, but it has to start with you. You can't be reliant on doctors. You can't think that the dozen medications you're taking every day is going to be helpful. Take initiative, take back control, and I promise you they'll help you out. Sorry I got so fired up at the end. This is Pete Weintraub, Permanent Weight Loss Specialist. I'm signing off here live in the Permanent Weight Loss community on Facebook. Again, if you're listening to this on YouTube or on my podcast, I'll put a link to that in the thing below. It's for folks who are looking to lose 25 or more pounds, who are looking to either avoid or prevent a chronic condition, and are also looking to avoid or prevent weight loss surgery. Thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys next week. Have a good one.